Hi everybody, welcome and thank you for joining me again. It is becoming clearer and clearer that William is distancing his royal household. I'm not talking about the family, but the institution and William's office, from the office of his father. William is making it very, very, very clear that he is done with the feudal superior way of handling things. William said it before. What must he do with 10 homes? You can't live in them all at the same time. William has the same attitude about money. He is already rich, and he knows he's going to inherit even more from his father. But William is also fed up with the wastage. He has literally had it, particularly with his father's habit of giving certain people money and opportunities they do not necessarily deserve. We are going to get into some things very quickly because I want you to understand why I have empathy for William, why I understand him as much as anyone can understand someone else. Now look, I do not hero worship William. He has made mistakes, and I can see him making a few more in the future. But I respect him and I trust him 1,000 times more than his father. Okay, now we all know that William removed Camilla's sister, Annabel Elliot, from the Duchy of Cornwall's payroll after taking control of the estate in 2022. Annabel Elliot was hired by Charles in 2005 to decorate and renovate holiday properties in Cornwall, Wales and the Isle of Scilly. She was paid hundreds of thousands of pounds over the past 20 years. After William refused to renew her contract and took her off the duchy's payroll, Charles gave her projects to work on at Balmoral and Buckingham Palace. Or so the official narrative goes. So, take a minute. Do you think Charles and Camilla were happy about this development? No, of course not. Charles was livid. He does not like taking money out of his own pocket and was quite happy for the duchy to be paying Annabel Elliot for whatever, because how many times can one decorate or redecorate the same properties over 20 years? Once? Twice? Maybe 3 times? Regardless of his father's tantrums and his stepmother's cold stares, William stuck to his guns, and William sent a letter to Buckingham Palace stating that he did not require a dedicated in-house chief interior designer. Done and dusted, and there was nothing Charles could do about it. But the battles continue. Why did Harry Lopes, Camilla's son-in-law, travel with them to the United States and attend the state dinner? Why did Otis Irwin, Camilla's grandnephew, accompany the royal party and attend the formal dinner? So eyebrows were raised and questions were asked behind the scenes because, of course, who is ultimately paying for that overseas trip? The government and taxpayer, of course. So what was the answer from Buckingham Palace? Well, the answer is that Harry Lopes did not have an official or formal diplomatic role. His presence was primarily as guest of the royal family. Yes, a guest, the taxpayer was paying for. Of course, they were also very quick to add that Harry Lopes is a renewable energy executive and the founder and CEO of Eden Renewables. Okay, so then he should be able to afford his own ticket to the United States, I would think. Now, at least Otis Irwin was already in the United States. He is currently a student athlete in the United States at Yale University. So his inclusion in the state dinner was purely a friendly gesture, giving the young man an exclusive seat at a historical event, which I have no problem with. I think it is cool, but there are people who are giving it a side eye because of him not being on the staff or being a working royal. But I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. It did not cost the British taxpayer a single cent to have that young man there to observe, let's say, a historical event. It was nice, like any other guest. Not so much the son-in-law, Mr. Lopes. Remember that 3 of Camilla's grandsons acted as pages during the coronation, which I also thought was fair, as she was also being crowned. But I am now hearing that there was indeed unhappiness about it because there were senior pages from the church who practiced for months just to be told that her grandchildren would be used. Also remember that Camilla made Annabel one of her 6 Queen's companions, previously known as ladies in waiting. Also remember the cash for access controversy involving Ben Elliot, Annabel's son. Remember when multimillionaire Muhammad Amersi paid Ben Elliot a £15,000 annual fee for membership of Elliot's top tier in his concierge firm. So in 2013, Ben Elliot flew a Mercy private jet to Scotland, where he was treated to a candlelit dinner with Charles at Dumfries House. Shortly after the dinner, a Mercy also made a 6-figure donation to one of Charles's charities. Well, there's more. But there's also sources to protect. But I'll give you a hint. Some of the Queen and Queen Mother's jewellery being changed and adapted for Camilla. So clearly there's no intention of returning it to the royal collection. So all I will still say about this is William has had enough. He would rather see those pieces in the William has had enough. He would rather see those pieces in the royal collection and saved as parts of history for generations to come, than it being changed and ending up with the children and grandchildren of Camilla. Once it is in the royal collection, Catherine can borrow and wear it anyway. The same would apply to Anne and Sophie, the Queen's daughter and daughter-in-law. It is also well known that William is not fond of Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son. Tom was a heavy partying, drug-taking guy in the past. William is straight-laced and incredibly protective of the monarchy's public image and, of course, of his wife and children. He is also distrusting of Tom's outspoken media presence. It is said that William is highly uncomfortable with Camilla inviting Tom to main royal events. And for the past few years, William and Catherine preferred to leave straight after the Sandringham Walk and host their own family gathering at Anmer Hall with the Middletons. Another bone of contention between Charles and William started soon after William took over the Duchy of Cornwall. The Leasehold Reform Act of 1967 explicitly gave residential leaseholders the right to buy their freehold. But Section 33 explicitly exempted number 1 the Duchy of Lancaster, number 2 the Duchy of Cornwall, and number 3 the Crown Estate. Of course there was backlash, and at one point the duchies gave voluntary undertakings whereby they undertook that they would mirror the 1967 reform, except when it comes to historic buildings. However, today, 58 years later, we know it was just empty words. Both in 1993 and 2002, there were more reforms, like the Leasehold Reform, Housing and Urban Development Act 1993 and the Commonholder Leasehold Reform Act of 2002. But this continued to protect specific properties with Crown associations. To be blunt and very specific, the Duchy of Cornwall under the then Prince Charles maintained strict, and I mean strict, leasehold enfranchisement, particularly in areas such as Dartmoor and the Isles of Scilly. Now this article by Robert Booth, dating back to September 2017, tells the whole story, drama upon drama, with residents appealing to the government time after time after time. At one point, the Duchy of Cornwall stated clearly on their website, the Duchy does not accept applications to enfranchise certain geographic locations. It was always painted that Charles was so popular among residents of the Duchy, that he has done so much for the Duchy and its people, blah, blah, blah. Not true. Not true at all. Charles was highly unpopular. Residents may have sided up to him in the hope that they could evoke kindness. With kindness. It did not work. Charles had a way of turning a deaf ear and was a master at ghosting. In 2016, Cornwall was placed among the worst areas for rough sleeping in the United Kingdom. Now I'm asking you, was the situation helped by the Duchy? No, not at all. Central government jumped in with their rough sleeping initiative. However, the figures are still above the national average. It's only going down now. William knew that housing and the leasehold issue was one of the issues working negatively towards, say, Charles's popularity, etc., etc. But not only Charles, but it also had a negative effect on the entire monarchy. In 2024, William agreed to end the centuries-old restrictions preventing residential tenants from buying their freeholds. For a start, the newly introduced rights specifically applied to Dartmoor and Newton St. Lo. Initially, the Duchy did not want to extend the new rules to the Isle of Scilly. Finally, tenants on the island was also allowed to purchase the extended 990-year leases, with the only provision being that the Duchy retains the first option to buy back the property at market value should it ever come up for sale. Charles was livid, beside himself. For 2 years since the death of the Queen, he tried to talk William out of giving up the leaseholds, but William equally ghosted his father. He ditched palace lawyers. In April 2025, William decided that the rift was now big enough and no way could Harbottle and Lewis represent both him and his father, and he appointed Michon de Reya to act on behalf of the Wales family. Michon de Reya, coincidentally, being the firm who also represented Diana in her divorce from Charles. Maybe William was giving a message with that as well. I don't know. I don't know him that well. Not only has William already donated duchy land for low-cost housing, but he has also agreed to sell 20%, 1/5 of duchy land over the next 10 years. It is William and his team's plan to use the £500 million for affordable housing, well, £161 million for affordable housing, rural jobs and workplaces, another £123 million, green energy and nature conservation, £120 million. Now, Charles and his old school buddies are highly critical of William's decisions. Of course, Charles's supporters are really reaching, trying to make William into the nasty piece of work his father always was, saying that all William is doing is swapping one asset for another, and that he and the duchy will still receive the revenue stream from the newly built rental properties, but the communities affected are indeed applauding William, saying he is finally leading them away from the feudal system when the duchy acted like an untouchable feudal landlord. Of course, the list of William's discontent with his father's reign is long, very long. Next time, I want to tell you about why William is really angry at Camilla for his father appointing Torben André as press secretary, a man who actively approved of a hate campaign against himself, but even more so against Catherine. Why choose him specifically when it was no secret that he was no fan of William or Catherine? The same can be said for the newly appointed Reynon Mills. William must be flabbergasted, or maybe not. Maybe it is what he expected, because the worse it gets, the more William goes against his father's wishes. To put the cherry on the icing, reports leaked in May, only a few weeks ago, that Charles tasked his deputy private secretary, Theo Rycroft, to mediate between William and Harry. It does not matter who you ask, they will tell you the exact same thing. Theo Rycroft, a former diplomat and described as a diplomatic genius, okay, his number one